Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to puff him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
There he is, Dollar Bill, Mr. Bill Chisholm. He's real. As Noah said to me prior to us going on live, I didn't know you were a real person. It's three-dimensional Bill Chisholm. We got to see him in person. Actually, Noah and Bobby have met Mr. Chisholm before at Celtics games, but it was our first chance to talk to the Celtics principal owner, who held a press conference today along with Rich Gotham, as you can see over there, with Grousbeck, who's a bigger part of this, not just it's a bigger part of this than we thought, and Brad Stevens as well. And what's going on, guys? Welcome to this show. What's this show called?
The Garden Report.
It's been a while.
I was thinking it was a trick question. I was like, what is this show called?
I've been missing. I've been missing the show. I don't know if the show has been missing me. Bobby and Noah have been doing most of the heavy lifting this offseason during kind of the lull of things, but we're about to kind of ramp it up. So it's good to get back in here and talk shop. And we had a reason to do it today because, as we said, it's our first chance to talk to the Celtics owner. We'll go over some of the stuff that he said, our analysis of those things, talk a little bit about Jayson Tatum. And again, media day and training camp is right around the corner. So it happened. Guys, we made it. Congratulations. We made it. We made it all the way through the off season. I didn't know if we would, but we did.
It flew by,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
For me.
The last 2 months were tough. Yeah, there's nothing going on.
Look at Bobby. It's like he's been in the woods. It's like the Revenant. He's been in the woods, like
stuck at
wrestling
Fenway.
bears. Yeah.
But we're here, and it's an intriguing year. I know you don't feel that way, John. I
don't.
I'm super
Don't watch
captivated
us
by what's going to happen here. Yeah. And this is the starting point, right? This is what we got hit with almost immediately after the championship a year ago. It's lingered in the background of the entire path to trying to repeat and then eventually failing to do so. And now we're getting some kind of resolution. And as you said, John, it's let's meet Bill, but it's also don't forget about Wick, who's still hanging around there, who still owns a significant portion of this team and is shoulder and shoulder with Bill for all the decisions ahead here. So, I mean, you had another owner on stage who many people probably didn't know about today. There's a private equity firm and as many as 24 members of this ownership group here. So this is a crowded room they're about to have here. And the big thing for me today, John, was how's this decision-making process going to work?
Well, we'll get into all of it, piece by piece. And again, we've cut up a few sound bites. We'll play them for you. We'll get your thoughts on it here in the chat. And obviously our analysts here, Noah and Bobby, who were at the press conference today, as was I, as was Amit. We had the whole gang down there checking it out. Rich LeMay, of course, for a chance to meet Bill Chisholm. Before we get started, I want to let you know about our pals over at Prize Picks, our partners here. Number one daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy to win up to 100, 1,000 times your cash, 1,000,000 times your cash. So much cash. Download the app. Use code CLNS. Get $50 in your lineup after you play your first 5. So once again, you get 50 in your lineups after you play your first 5. So let's get into it. Our primary takeaways from the press conference. And again, I do believe that the thing everybody was most interested in, and the quote that I do believe is going to be thrown around the most, right or wrong, was, and it took an insanely long time to get to it. I mean, insane. It was like, what's your favorite color? There was just a lot of stuff. The meat of it is what? If you're a Celtics fan right now, what do you care about? Are they going to spend money? Are they here to make money? And that's all you care about, any owner, not just these owners, but we know so little about them. And as Bobby mentioned, it's this messy, 24-person room with a private equity firm attached. And, well, we're still working on the blah, blah, blah. And Wick buys back in. It's hard to know who's making the calls, what those calls are going to be, whether the people who are driving the bus here are primarily interested in building a winner or making money or a little bit of both. And again, we're still that's going to take time to bear out. But here was the question finally asked by the Globe's Chris Gasper about
Who's
the
Steve?
economic reality. Economic reality. First asked to Brad, who gave a Brad answer, then asked directly to Bill Chisholm. So what are you going to do? Are you going to spend money or what?
I want to give you a chance to talk about that because I think for a lot of fans, that's probably their biggest question about any owner. How much is that owner willing to spend? We know that some of the luxury tax penalties can be onerous. To reset the whole thing, you guys would have to get under twice in a 4-year period.
Jasper with
so
his
I'm curious, I
thesaurus.
want to give you a chance to discuss that, where you stand on that in terms of not just the second apron, but getting all the way under the luxury tax and trying to reset some of these penalties. Or if you don't care, hey, let's go for it.
I mean, let's go for it, but let's do it in a reasonable way. I think we're trying. My goal and my high level direction to Brad and the team is let's do whatever we can to win championships and raise banners and raise as many as we can, both in the near term but also in the medium to the long term as well. So definitely taking that approach and the flexibility that Brad talks about, I think that's paramount to doing that. So, but ultimately, we're going to do everything we can to win. That is job number one, and not just win games, win championships.
So that's going to be the headline, right? That people are going to run
That was
with.
my
Right
quote
or
of the
wrong.
day.
Yeah, the let's go for it, but let's do it in a reasonable way. I have my thoughts on this because I think people are going to jump a little bit all over it, but let's start with you guys. Noah, first with you. Just his answer, and again, Bobby followed up too and also asked a question, kind of put him on the spot in terms of, how you're selling this, and we'll play that one as well. But just this initial answer to the question, I think on most people's minds, like, so are you guys here to go for it, or are you going to sit back and, save some money and wait and pick your spots?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is that he's not going to say anything definitive in this press conference, right? One, he alluded to many times that he's only been in the seat for about a month, right? So he's working through things and thinking through plans and arenas and WNBA teams and all these things that he was asked of. And at the same time, it was clear that he has not sat in that seat before and has not had to field those questions. So there's a level of comfort that Brad Stevens has up there that he just doesn't have at this point, considering it was his first go. So had he said, like, we are not going to be the kind of ownership group that is worried about luxury taxes, all we care about is winning, like something very definitive, I think that would have been noteworthy. Anything less than that is pretty much within the realm of normal. And like, I'm not, let's go for it, but let's do it in a reasonable way is probably how almost every owner in the NBA operates. So I don't draw much from that. What I will draw from is how he actually moves in the coming years. So he didn't say anything. Like, a lot of times these kinds of questions, to me, they're only noteworthy if the answer is very definitive, which is pretty unusual. So it's kind of like, what can we take for certain? Or like, this he really signaled was a priority. And I didn't get, like, I don't know, we just heard the quote all together. I didn't get anything definitive from that answer. But it's also kind of what you'd expect for a guy who's in the seat for the first time.
And I agree that, yes, it's the first line and a tough question in the first press conference. But I do think it's reflective of the reality of the situation that they're not going to be all in yet until it makes sense. And then once they do that, we'll judge them based on that accordingly. And it's the same thing we've talked about for a while, John. We understand why they slashed $200 million off the tax bill this summer and aren't necessarily all in because Tatum's out. They don't have a great chance to win. Got to reset the apron, all of that. But when the time comes, and this is what I've stressed, is that time's coming sooner than many people realize, you got to be back in this thing when Tatum gets back for the following year. So that's still the unclear part, is are they diving deep back into the tax the next year? And when I hear reasonable way, doesn't make me think that necessarily. Now, you're right. No, it's not an indication of what's going to happen necessarily, but they're not trying to sell anything that they can't promise necessarily. That's at least how I feel about it.
Yeah, and so I agree with all of it. I think this is going to be, like I said, made a bit of a headline, which it might not be. And I think both of what you said is right in the sense of, like, I don't think he can go anywhere with this answer. There's nothing you can say here. He
because
can't
there's
just
23 owners.
I mean, first off, right, but second, what's he going to say? No, man, we're going to spend. You can't. we're going to spend like
Right.
crazy to put the best team on the floor. They just didn't do that.
Why
So
not? Ballmer would do that, John.
So I mean, again, we saw Ballmer get rid of Paul George as well. You know, I mean, the money is real. So,
Fair.
and that's that guy's worth $130 billion on his own.
To be fair, they had a very lined up story of this being a strategic move. Like we couldn't have gotten Derek, we couldn't have got Kristaps, X, Y, and Z without being in this position. So I thought that was fair.
Look,
I'll give them that.
They said it, and like, look, the company line of you have to do this. This is the way it's set up. We can go back and forth on whether or not the punishment is what the reason or whether it's the money. But again, I do think Wick said something, and we're not going to play this bite, but one of the most significant things that I thought that he said was, and I've been saying this as well, was what happened this offseason was happening regardless of the owner. This wasn't a Bill Chisholm move. It would have been a Pags move. It would have been a whatever move. It was the move simply because you're not going to be spending $280 in tax alone on a team. It's simply not going to happen. They weren't going to spend. Nobody on the planet, regardless how rich they were, Steve Ballmer, doesn't matter, is not spending $500 million. We knew it, right? But if you're Chisholm, you're stuck. You can't say, yeah, we're going to go for it. They just didn't go for it. They just gutted their roster for, we can call it reasons of, getting out of the penalties, but really very likely financial reasons. So he's stuck here. He has nowhere to go necessarily on it. And he's not going to say anything definitive. I think most owners' approaches are going to be, what I will say counter to that is what you'd rather hear a little bit more sprinkled in. And let's play Bobby's answer. Let's play Bobby's question and answer as well. And I'll follow up with my take after this one, because it's kind of along the same line of, what are we doing here? And this is Bobby asking about specifically like how you let go of the, these players and what that, I think the question might be in here. Let's just play it and see.
To explain to fans, you guys had to make some significant cuts this summer, send out some significant players.
Yeah.
How would you explain to fans how that is going to benefit this team in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, in some of those, as a fan, like I get it, like those hurt, as a fan, and both, just in the good people and obviously great players we had to part ways with, and that I get it, that hurts. I would say, I don't mean to be glib, but there's sort of three things I would say. First is Derek White, second is Drew Holiday, and third is Kristaps Porzingis, because if we were in the situation back when we couldn't have gotten those guys on the team. So that's what we're playing for. We're playing for the flexibility to do that kind of thing. And when the moment is right, to do that, we're going to do it.
I'd like to just add to that for a sec.
There's Wick.
Those moves, or this type of move, would have happened whether or not the team sold.
Okay, it is in
I
there.
was on
Yeah.
the committee that really wrote these new rules and negotiated.
I
them with
destroyed the
players,
team
so wrote them
with the
together
rules I made.
players.
It was
Make
me.
it much more
This
tough
is
to just go and
unbelievable.
buy a championship. You have to have teams competing on a basically even financial keel, no matter who owns them, and then have the best front office and the best good luck probably as well, best players, but competing other than by just saying who's got the most money.
So whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But so my take is this. I think there's a better way to put this without boxing yourself in that gives people a little bit more confidence, right? It is very measured in all of the responses. It's a reality, and we had to go at the rah, we want to win stuff. Has any owner or coach in history taken over anywhere and said, we're not really looking to win? Like, those are platitudes. They mean nothing. But what you do want to see a little bit is, what you want to hear the owner declare is, we're not in, essentially what I said off the top. We're not in it for the money. We're in it for the glory. Like, I want to be part of this and winning above all else. And push comes to shove, when we are ready, when we've got an opportunity to win and to contend, yeah, we're going to spend. We're going to go get those players. We're going to do everything possible. We're not afraid to pay a tax. We're not afraid to lose money if we have to, as opposed to we'll do it, but within reason. it means the same thing. It just sounds better, right? You know, and that was it. Is everything was, I don't want to say anything here and have it come back on me. We know everyone's going to be cautious. And again, I don't think it's a Bill Chisholm thing. I think it's a sports owner thing, or an owner of a team in a league where there are extremely punitive penalties for going over the salary cap. So I get it. I want to hear a little bit more of that, as opposed to what feels like, you know, I'm from here and I love this and this and that. Like we get that, and I think that's all well and good. But I think fans kind of see through it. They just want to see you just drop the cash on the table and go get the guy. And we had questions about whether Wick would do that, right? And we saw them kind of nickel and diming in that year when they went under a certain threshold and they didn't pick up another guy and they didn't use a TPE because they wanted that $10 million back that the league was giving to all teams if they stayed under a certain threshold. I was like, they were obviously trying to save money. And you're like, you could have gotten better. Guys were being traded. If you wanted to pay for them, you could have gotten one of those guys, and they didn't. And so the first test is going to be when there's an opportunity to make a move, to sign a player, to make a trade, to do something that's going to add payroll. Are you willing to do it? Are you willing to do it to make an okay team a little bit better? Or does the team have to be on the cusp of a championship, and then you're going to go get the final piece to put you over the top and eat it for a year and pay the tax? That's what you don't want. You want people who are aggressively going out, get that guy, because I think it's going to make us better. Is it going to win us? I don't know, but we're ready to go. I'm ready to open up the checkbook, and you don't necessarily get that vibe. So that's kind of my takeaway there. It might just be semantics. It might just be how it was presented, but it did seem everything was very measured and guarded, and a lot of, just generalities about, what it's like to own a team in this current difficult financial climate.
Yeah, and I think that some of that just might be his personality too. Like, he doesn't seem like he's a very flowery, Wick has that kind of showman kind of energy more so than Bill does.
Definitely,
and I think
definitely.
Bill, honestly, sitting next to Brad Stevens, he just looked like a slightly more nervous version of Brad Stevens. Brad is very cool in these environments, but I think he has the same speaking style and same approach to answering these questions. And a lot of times throughout this press conference, he said, there's three parts to this, or, he was kind of very flowery with how he was describing things rather than being just kind of giving fun, energetic sound bites. So to me, that was more perspective onto how he is as a person, and especially in these environments.
No
and
doubt.
like you said, actually signaling where things are going to go. So when the press conference ended, I was like, what did I actually learn here? What do I feel differently about the direction of the team or his ownership group than I did an hour ago? And there were very few things. So for better or worse, I don't think he made a splash in any direction with what he said. I don't know if maybe there was
Agree.
You guys, but I felt like it was as much of a non-answer or a very kind of moderate answer to most things that he was asked about.
I agree. Yeah.
I came away with slightly more confidence that they'll pay the tax this year, some amount of tax. It definitely doesn't seem like there's a mandate to get below it. And maybe that's
I would
just
agree
a lie.
there.
Maybe that's just a lie, but I felt better about that, having asked those questions and having gotten the answers, especially from Brad. That he's been very clear that they want to be below the second apron so they can make trades, not just below the tax for the fun of being below the tax. Now, if they crash and burn, that might change, but they're going to see how it goes, as he said.
But that's important. I think that I had that. I took that away also, that there was absolutely a mandate, to get under the second apron, 100%. But anything beyond that, I think they've got some flex, which already shows you that they're willing to pay a little bit and a little extra money to live in this zone here, for if they have to. So I don't think they're set on, because there was concern. I think if Anthony Simons got dished for nothing or traded, and then those pieces got traded and they went all the way under, it would have been very clear. They just shed parts, clear indication. It still might happen. I don't think we'll get a good sense until the end of this year, because again, all of these tax penalties and everything that goes on about the repeater tax and trying to get out of it 2 out of 4 years and all of that stuff, it's where you end up, not where you start. So if they do trade Simons at the deadline or something like that in order to get themselves all the way under the tax period, then I think we're fed some, we were fed some BS there. And again, maybe they're going to wait and see whether they can contend or not and what the situation is. But if they start shedding salary in parts to get all the way under the tax at the end of this year, I think it becomes clearer that that was probably the goal. It just didn't happen necessarily all at once. And again, we've said this all offseason. If the reporting was to be believed, they've been trying to get off of Simons the whole time, which is why I always believed the goal was.
And I still don't get, why do you think that is, Noah? If let's just say there's no man, because if it does a tax mandate, obviously.
But there might have been
There's
a
not a
mandate.
mandate. Yeah.
But now
But
that
it-
they're
I don't
stuck,
think
now,
there's a.
now that they're here, they might have been the mandate. But now that they're here, this might be the new spin.
But why do
of,
why
no,
do you think
we're
they
fine.
were? Why do
Yeah.
you think they were so urgent in trying to get off Simons? Though, is it just they don't like the
I
player?
don't
Is
think
it
they
they're
were
looking for
so
something else?
urgent because I think if they were really urgent, he wouldn't be on the roster right now. What I do think is that if you look at it in big pictures, like a $28 million contract for an expiring player that I think we can sit here and say probably you wouldn't view him as a long-term fit. Maybe he is, and maybe he's actually the future of the franchise. Who knows? But if he's not going to stick around long-term, then you would imagine that they would poke around and ask about his value and see if there's interest in him. And now you can shed that tax bill because he's on an expiring deal. So it's not like he's a part of your future plans. So the fact that they didn't find a suitor for him, I have not heard from anybody that this was like an aggressive, like they were trying to get off that contract. My understanding is that he was just that, they acquired him, they surveyed, if there was interest, that sort of thing. And I think they're very happy to have him on the roster. And honestly, from talking to people around the league, like I think a lot of people expected the Celtics to go a lot further in reducing their payroll this summer, which sounds kind of wild considering just like how much left, how many players walked out the door, how many players they traded. But I think there was an expectation, honestly, that it would be even more severe than it ended up being. And I think they are trying to win as much as possible. Like that's a different.
Let me ask you, Noah.
Yeah.
Do you believe? So this is where I'm stuck on that. I thought so too. My question is whether they wanted to but couldn't, and that's why they're here, or they never really wanted to, and that's that. Because again, I don't believe. I thought that I believe the reporting on it. I believe that they were shopping Simons, and I believe the only reason to do that, which was the most valuable asset you got back in any trade, was for money. Because I can't see another reason why. It makes you worse on the court. There's no question about it. And if that's true, then I do believe they were trying to get under it. That's what I'd said earlier. If it's not true, then they're fine. But like I kind of think they were. I mean, again, and it just didn't work out, and now they have to accept it and roll with it. But
that's how you feel when you don't talk to a guy all summer either. Even
we haven't met him. The very fact that they kept him on ice, he was never introduced. I mean, I really felt like the plan was not to have him here. So he's a really interesting person. And again, someone put it in the chat here. It wouldn't shock media days Tuesday. It wouldn't shock me if he's a Rocket by Monday. I don't know. That's
an interesting one.
When I say that though, it's first of all, like I'm in agreement with you that I think that there was a good chance that he was going to be traded this summer. Like I haven't, there's I think very few of us have covered him extensively. Yeah, me too. And again, media day is Monday. We know trades can happen all the way up until the buzzer, and we know trades can happen after media day. So just because he's on the roster today doesn't mean that he'll be on the roster by the time the trade deadline comes around. What I'm more saying is that they had other moves that they could have made, namely the two names that I think were in the media the most this summer of Derek White and Jaylen Brown, that they
Sam Hauser,
that they never came close to.
I don't think that was happening.
Yeah.
I never believed those were happening. I thought they would have had to be blown away to do that for real. I don't think they were looking to drop those guys by any stretch.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so that's what I mean when I say like people around the league might look at the Celtics and say they could have done a lot more. Is I do think there was a moment where people expected like Jaylen Brown, Derek White, like they're going to hit the full reset here. And I know we debated that a lot around the time of Tatum's injury of what was going to happen. But by keeping those guys, and ultimately they are still about paying the luxury tax, like I think there's more of an intent to win this season. We've gone back and forth on this all summer that I can't even remember the timeline, but like there was a moment in time where I was like, actually, I think they might be tanking next year. And there's no indications right now that that's going to be the case this season.
Well, that's the advantage they have right now with where the roster's at is there's at least some deniability against that with where they're at.
Sure.
It's like, okay, certain guys could step up. Certain guys could have big years, blah, blah. If you're going to trade Simons, John, for Van Fleet and picks, then all of a sudden everyone goes, oh, they are tanking. So that's a tough position they're in on that front. I don't know how much it matters to them, how much it looks like they're trying to contend. They've certainly talked a lot about trying to win as much as they can this year, but they've also been realistic about where they're at. And I'll give the fans credit too. I feel like the fans are generally understanding of where this thing's at. Like, they're not freaking out about the trades and losses that they made here. And they're certainly not super convinced that this thing's going to be amazing anytime soon here. My question is just whether they have a outline of what it's going to take to get back. Like, if we knew there was a guy out there next summer who you could go and get with this flexibility, or, mid-level guys who could solve your center problem, or just all these different questions they have in 2027, we'll get to Tatum in a little bit, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
the following year's the question. And my concern with this team, and I don't know if you share it, Noah, what's going to get them back? Like, they're obviously not going to have the Porzingis Holiday, team that they had before when they're back. And this is where the league's at now. There's not going to be teams like that anymore. But how can you get back in the conversation? Because as it stands and who's available for the following summer, I don't think there's a straight path to contending again, unless it's internal.
This is literally going to be every conversation we have after they start the season, like 5 and 16. So again, I don't know if we're going to
5 and 16.
I just
John's so low on this team.
John, do we have? Are we gonna at some point in the show get your win prediction?
Yeah, not this one. Bobby's doing the preview show. I'm doing the Celtics owner show right now.
25 already, so it's going to be.
No, but I kind of want your number. Can we get it?
Not yet.
No.
If we deliver it now,
I put mine in the world now, so I want everybody's.
I'll put it out there. We want to get to a little bit more from the owners before we get into like deep strategy and what they're going to do in February, March, May, and July here, because I do want to hear a little bit more from really everybody. We're going to hear from Wick. We're going to hear from Brad, because there were a couple of things I think we learned today, and I'm curious your take on.
I like the press of today. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I did. It's a good time had by all. We want to tell you first off, again, just a reminder, Prize Picks. It's time. It's Thursday night. You know what happens. There's football on Thursdays. Get your lineups in now if you already have signed up for Prize Picks. Yeah, what is it? What do we got today?
I got to set my lineup.
Yeah, you got to set your lineup. But for everybody else, get in on the action now. Guys, do we have any free squares tonight? Somebody tell me before I get done with this thing. But anyway, Prize Picks, #1 daily fantasy sports app, millions of members. Pick more, pick less, up to 2,000 times your cash. That easy. Mix and match your lineup projections. I like going one game at a time. That's always my favorite thing. I like to lock in. So if you've got Thursday night football, Sunday night football, a 1 o'clock game, I love doing it for that sort of stuff. So check it out. As we said, pick more, pick less on a series of stats with 2 or more players. And there you go. Prize Picks does it all, puts its members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you get your money as quickly as 15 minutes. And all you need to do, if you haven't signed up, and it's a great time to do so, download that app right now. Use the code CLNS. Get 50 in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, you get 50 in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get back to it, guys. One of the things I thought was interesting, and I'm surprised that this was the first thing out of the bat asked here, but about John Corrales for Boston Sports Journal, our buddies over at BSJ.
This is a great question.
Wanted to ask, this was interesting because we talked about the 47 people who are part of this ownership group, and some guy who was up at the press conference today that nobody knew existed like 4 hours ago.
We knew.
No one knew, but no one knew. But you know what I mean? It's like, it was like, oh, I guess this person's a big part. And again, you'd heard the name. I'm just kidding here, but we don't know fully. It's an interesting mystery, right? Because you had the Chisholm is in there, but Wick's going to be in there. And then they had the switcheroo where Wick couldn't be doing what he was supposed to be doing. So they had to switch positions.
Wick was supposed to be governor.
Yeah. So they switched positions and they're like, but does this guy have enough juice or clout on his own? How much of it is his own money? How much of it is backed? How much of it is he chasing? How much of it is he fundraising? How big is the PE share? How big a say is that PE firm going to have? How many people are involved in this thing? And it sounds like a lot. So John Corrales, Boston Sports Journal, asked right out of the question, who's running the show?
Leadership and the way that I've approached that all my life is through consensus. We've got a great team, and both, and you asked about basketball, but I'd also speak the same way about the business operations team as well. So Brad and Rich are great leaders. In the end of the day, there is, I am accountable, and there's a governor, and the governor has the final say, and that's me.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, if Brad Stevens comes to you with a matter that requires ownership approval, whatever it is, what you say is what goes, or if 7 others on your board vote differently, it's your opinion that matters on that?
I think the way to think about it is that when we're kind of working through things, we're doing that as a group, and really Wick and myself are that final gate, but ultimately I'm the one that's accountable. And to be very clear, that is the final say.
Interesting. Throwing Wick in there too. Yeah, I thought he was pretty declarative that he's got the final say, but it's still that Wick thing.
I just because it was the first question, he was so nervous in his opening remarks that I felt for him that was the first thing he got. I think it was a good question, but I wonder if it was later on if he would have been able to answer it a little bit more thoroughly, because he got better as far as things went along. But he's the guy,
Yes.
and he's going to be the one to take the fall if things go wrong or reject things.
No doubt, but it is interesting. It's like that. Does he overrule all? So the question, 9 people want one thing and he wants the other, he gets it? Is that your
think so.
takeaway? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting because it was roundabout, and you can interpret that a couple ways. And I agree with you 100%, Noah. He's getting his sea legs under him, a little bit there, and it's early on, and it almost sounds obnoxious if he came right out of the gate and be like, "It's me," and be like, "Whoa, geez," because there's other people there at the table, and you don't want to, diminish their, importance or involvement. But it was a long roundabout way to ultimately say that it is I who makes the final calls here. I'm still not entirely convinced. I really do think it is going to be. I think
It's going to be a conversation.
I think he's got to sign off, but I think there's going to be a lot of input on
There's
a
going
lot
to be
of
a lot of
decisions here.
input. Yeah, from what I heard today, there's going to be conversations. That's how it was previously, right? We know Wick wasn't the dictator here. There were a lot of other people involved, and he had a relatively small share of this team, but he's back in with a big one. And so he is going to be a sizable voice here. Mittal, is that his name? Noah, the other owner there?
Yeah.
And, 6th Street obviously are going to have sizable say here too. I'm so fascinated. He got asked about the private equity thing at one point. I don't think we learned a ton about it, but I don't know how that works either. There's just this whole company that's however many percent there, at least $1 billion, I believe. How do they put their input into this? It's just such a complicated setup. It's almost unprecedented what they're trying to do here with all these different voices and all these different people. But someone does have to have final say. He's going to have to manage the different voices, and there are going to be some money interest here, I'm sure, with investments like that. A private equity firm is not here to win the championship. They're trying to make money off this. That's just what it is. There's no way around it, describing that for what it is. But there's some other people here like Wick who want to win, and he was talking about the 3rd championship and all that here. So they had a compromise on this, right, John? Wick wanted to stay. Well, needed more money to sell this team, so you had to bring in some people here who are here for business reasons. And it sounds like a sizable amount of the former owners stayed as well. So this is going to be a lot of competing interests.
And that tells me a couple of things. And I did want to get in there, ask a question about this very topic, but I was curious. Wick's involvement has changed a bit, right? First, it was figurehead, so we thought. He's a tourist. He's going to be on here. He's going to hang out. At least I'm talking at the beginning of the sale. Wick's going to stay on. Nobody really understood how that worked, right? and what that meant. And then it was, well, he'll be on for X amount of time. And now Wick revealed something completely different. And I do think that I feel like this is new-ish information when Wick was kind of asked about, how he went about this decision and his role in, kind of this ownership group, now and down the road.
Challenge to wrap my head around this. I worked it out with my family. I ended up with, agreed that I'd end up with about half of what the family and I had collectively put in. So that's now in my name. So I'm a significant owner in this team alongside Bill and Adit and 6th Street. Grateful for that.
He's not going anywhere.
More than just ownership.
Sweet.
It's just love and commitment. And Amelia and I have agreed to, and we're glad to be invited to really stay in forever.
Forever.
Keep shares in the team and courtside seats and just be there with our kids. It's just starting off. It was a challenge just to figure out how to auction off the Celtics successfully and find the right group among the many qualified groups and great people, including old friends who were bidding. But we knew one would step forward eventually, and a great group stepped forward eventually, and now we're part of it. So it's actually worked out, and no fooling. It's worked out authentically just great. I think it's worked out great for the Celtics too. I hope so.
He's staying forever.
So apparently it's not just going to see it through till the end of the sale and stay on till 2026 or 2027. It's forever. Wick sold the team to himself, basically, in part.
And we kind of knew that, right?
Sort of, but we thought he'd be around. I didn't realize so significantly. He's a big enough piece of this to be at the
You
table.
want the specifics, John?
No, Bobby, I want you to hold it for yourself.
Okay.
No, tell me if you have information, share it.
I believe Wick is a 13% owner of this team, and he's going to be on board for 5 years.
So again, he's made it. I don't understand where 5 years comes from. If you own 13%, you own 13%. He said it outright. We're here to stay. And he said it. I like my courtside seats. I want to be part of this action. And so the question I wanted to ask, and I didn't get a chance to get it in there, was earlier in the press conference, Wick had said, how he knew it was Bill. I looked into his eyes, no, he said, he just wanted it. I could tell.
Did he say that?
No, he didn't say I looked into his eyes. But he did say, I could tell he wanted it. It didn't necessarily have to do with the money. Okay.
I love Wick.
Didn't Pags want it?
He brought up
probably.
Pags there, some old friends.
Some old friends, and I don't believe that they actually like each other, but that's okay. That's just my opinion. But still, Pags still got kind of done dirty here, and I've always wondered, and we joked about it. Is it because Pags wasn't going to keep Wick around? And I think kind of maybe that might be it. Wick, and would I do the same thing? Sure. Like, I want to be part of this thing. And if I can grab an ownership group, even if it's a weird, funky one where the sale is odd and I'm selling it in parts at 51% now and blah, blah, blah later, and they're looking for investments, it was a weird sale. So it didn't quite make sense. Nobody had heard of Bill Chisholm. Yeah.
That was another thing I heard today pretty confidently, is that Wick didn't want to sell this team. And I think we knew that as well, right?
And again,
family and blah, blah, blah,
clearly.
blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, he said it. He said 18 months ago, that was another nugget we heard 18 months ago, which would have put it before the NBA Finals, not when we found out. He knew at the end of that run, Dad was selling the team. I wasn't going to be able to do this anymore. And so there was a scramble for the group. Wick being in his position, didn't want to let his piece go. I probably wouldn't either. But you have to think at this point, putting all the pieces together and listening to that answer and a few other things, this ownership group, I think, very much was chosen because, in part, I think Wick gets to continue to have a sizable role here. And again, at first we thought it was just honorary. They're letting him hang around. No, he rolled his equity back into this thing and bought a big chunk.
Sizable, yeah.
We sold our piece and Dad gave me half of it. And I rolled a bunch of it back in to buy back into this thing, and I got 13% now. I was sitting at 1.5 before. I'm a big player, and I'm sitting at the big boy table now.
He's a bigger owner now than he was before.
He's a bigger owner than he was before, and again, good on him. He wanted to be part of it, and they parlayed it into this. But I do think that makes sense as to why that's what was illuminating to me here, is that this makes sense why these guys were chosen. Maybe it's not the entire reason, but if it factored in, I would understand it.
The reality is, if the money was comparable, which I think that's all indicators say that they were, and Wyc was just choosing between two groups, if Pagliuca was his best friend that he would love to continue to stay on and they can work together, then he would have chosen Pagliuca. Like that's just the nature of it. So clearly these two get along well right now.
There's a real bromance going on, it seems like.
Oh, yeah.
I know. But, and so there was definitely a personnel reasoning behind it, and him staying on with a larger percent of ownership than he had previously. I wish it was all just public. Like, I would love to see exactly what the breakdown was for the previous ownership group and the current one. Like, let's get some ownership transparency over here. But because it's not, I think we're just kind of putting the pieces together, and it is that, he does have a larger share now. So he kind of got as good of an outcome as possible. And he kind of said it afterwards that, hopefully it'll be good for the Celtics as well. But I think for him, it's definitely good. Okay, it's as good as it could have been, considering the fact that his team, his family wanted to sell.
Yeah. So I found that to be somewhat interesting here, just because I've always been curious. How'd you end up here? How'd you end up with these guys? It was a real mystery group. We read all those articles in the early stages where, you've got people who swim in these waters and live in this world and know every billionaire everywhere, and they all have the secret handshake, and everyone's like, I don't know who the friggin' I've never heard of this guy. This guy isn't a player. Where the hell did he come from? It's still a bit of a mystery, but again, I think some things are coming into clearer focus here. Moving a little bit off the ownership talk and moving on to the basketball, I do think that something is on people's minds very much is the whole Jayson Tatum situation, because Tatum, did a little media blitz earlier in the week, and we'll get into some of that stuff.
To put it lightly.
Talking about, possibly playing this year. And I think that kind of really got people jacked up about the possibility of Tatum returning. And this is Brad Stevens answering a question about basically what Tatum's saying. I kind of want to see if I can play this year.
This from day one, and I'll continue to say it. No timelines on Jayson from my perspective. My number one goal, my number 2 goal, 3 goal, 4 goal is Jayson Tatum fully healthy, full recovery, and he's well on his way. He has been incredibly diligent. He's been a great leader by example to people in this building when no players were around in the middle of the summer, and when a lot of the young guys have been around in the last month and a half. And we appreciate that. And we know that he's going to be itching to get back. And he will be the biggest decision maker in that, right? But there will be a lot of people in that room when that ultimately gets decided.
Yeah, that was the one for me. It's going to be Jayson.
Yeah. So I again, I'm not buying it, but like, here it is. Jayson Tatum, these are some of the comments that sparked it. Earlier in the week, First Take ESPN. I haven't said I'm not playing this season. Most important thing is a full recovery. Being 100%, not rushing at all, but also I don't go to rehab 6 days a week from nothing. Another one, it sounds ironic to say this, but it's the best my body and the strongest I felt really kind of in my career. I never had this block of time to just focus on getting stronger, getting your body right. I see a world in which I come back and feel stronger more than ever. So, that was a couple of things here. And Tatum also went on to say, was this another one? This was, I thought, the best quote of all of it, because I'm not buying any of the comeback stuff, but this was really real and emotional and human. This is my bigger takeaway. I sat there, I cried for 2 hours. So many things ran through my mind. Is my career over? Am I going to get traded? My partner's going to drop me. My career flashed before my eyes. I'm in my prime. I'm one of the best basketball players in the world. It felt like it was all taken away. Very real, very raw, and I thought, a great quote here. But again, the entire world flipped out over this stuff. Jayson Tatum goes all over the place, saying he's not ruling out playing the season, and everyone immediately, February All-Star break, he's coming back. I put it on the Twitter machine. No, he's not. I don't think so. I'll apology Cam if I have to, and I'll gladly eat it. he comes back healthy and is a medical marvel and gets back, I don't care what they say within the range of 6, 7, 8 months. The Brad Stevens fully healthy is what everyone in the organization is going to want to see. It's not, is he ready? It's is he ready plus 5 months plus whatever. I can't see a world in which they put any risk on the table with Jayson Tatum. They would have to be 1,000 million trillion % certain he's good. And I can't see that happening within this year. I understand why Jayson Tatum did what he did. I understand he wants to go out there. I think 2 reasons. I think he went out there. 1, don't you forget about me, everybody. I'm still here.
That's right.
You know, I've been out of the public eye, and don't forget, I'm here. But also, it's absolutely the right thing to tell the world I'm working my butt off. It's good for fans. It's good for him. It also gives him something to build for. Imagine if he knew for sure today that he had no chance of playing. The Celtics shut the door on it. Maybe he doesn't take his rehab as seriously. If he can set goals for himself, whether or not he's ever allowed to actually return, that's going to make him work harder. It's going to make the rehab go better, and it's only beneficial for everybody, regardless of whether he plays. So there's a million good reasons for him to say it, for him to be working his ass off with the goal in mind of returning. I just simply don't think it's going to happen.
I was going to say, I think the psychological piece is huge here, because if you're a professional athlete that's played basketball year-round your entire life, and now it's September and you're being told, you know, you're probably not going to play again until October of 2026. Like, that is so far away, and it's already been
far.
19 weeks. Like, he said he circled a date on the calendar, and he has his friends and family, and they all know that that's the date that he wants to be. He was very specific about it. He wants to be 100% good to go by that date. It doesn't mean that he's going to lace up. I think he's going to actually be clear to play at some point this season. And there's just going to be a question around, does it make sense just because you're healthy enough to play and the risk of re-injury is not a thing? Just because of that, does it make sense for you to lace up for the last 8 games of the season, knowing that you're probably going to be a shell of yourself while you kind of work
and again,
the explosiveness and things. So
this is what people are missing here. Yeah.
Right.
What you just said, Noah, it's going to take a while. 100% healthy might mean structurally, right? But he could be putting himself through some rigors here. You're going to be talking about playing every other game, severe minutes restrictions, and then who knows, psychologically favoring one thing because you're worried and it's in the back of your mind, potentially causing injury problems elsewhere. Even the Twitter doctors out there, Noah, who were giving the very optimistic assessments where he got that surgery done immediately after, and it's a speedy recovery, and he seems to be far ahead of things. Speed bridge, but he's far ahead of it, and this and that. They're saying, but he's not going to look like himself until late 26, 27. You know, those are the optimistic people, right?
So that's the question too. Like,
sorry, Noah, go ahead. I jumped in, but yeah.
No, you're good. What I was going to say, I think my thing is actually, if I had to guess right now, I do think that Jayson Tatum is going to play in the 2025-2026 season. Like, I think he is going to take the court, and it's going to be a big buzz, and it's going to be a whole thing. Like, I actually think it's going to happen, but
no matter what.
That's what I think. That's if I had to pick right now.
But do you think it would be based off?
That's the most likely outcome.
Well or not?
Not necessarily. I mean, if they're out of the playoff mix and he wants to get in there and just like get in there for a few games and play 15 minutes a night, like, he's just not going to be first team all NBA Jayson Tatum. And so it's going to have to be a calculus of like, is it worth it to come back for a few games or for the last month of the season, regardless of where they are in the standings? Or do you want to do what Damian Lillard and Tyrese Halliburton have said they're doing, and that's wait till the following season? Like, I think that's a different question than the risk of re-injury. Like, he's not going to come back in if there's a risk of re-injury. Like, they have a medical staff. He's making $55 million a year. Like, he is the franchise. Like, he is not going to come back in that scenario. But if he's cleared, there might be a case of like, listen, you're not going to be yourself. You're not going to be as good as you normally are, right? Maybe you want to take the summer, take it easy, and like when you do come back, you're back to being Jayson Tatum. I could see it going either way, like depending on what mentally would feel better for him, whatever would make more sense for the team. Like, there's a lot of different things that come to that decision, but consequentially, he's not going to be Jayson Tatum next season. So whether or not he plays, I don't know that it's that important, but I do think he's going to lace up though. If I had to like pick a scenario right now, like, I think he will.
Noah, you asked for my win prediction, which I'm not going to give. I will give this one at some time around. We're going to be playing this Jayson Tatum game the whole way through, and sometime around February or March, it's going to be announced that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. And that's that. I also think there's a benefit to not just Tatum and his mindset. There's a benefit for the fans to have some sense of promise and hope and this and that, hey, who knows, particularly if the team is contending and in a position where they could really benefit from it. And I do think, yeah.
No, go ahead. I was going to say he was walking around the facility today, and I was thinking about how he was walking pretty good and how it's going to be all year of monitoring his every movement. You'll be able to follow up with the latest Jayson Tatum moves on my Twitter.
Yeah. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. I'm going to let you guys.
Which is enticing. I mean, you're going to need something to follow and be excited about this year's storylines when they're hitting some of the lows that they're inevitably going to this year. So I'm fine with that hope. I'm okay with him selling himself and saying, I'm still here and I'm not done and blah, 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 blah. So I had no problem with any of this. I think you're right, John, to push back against it a little bit just based off the reality of the situation. But I think I'm with Noah in that it gives me a sense that he's going to try this thing. And that's where his mindset's at. No one's going to push back against that, even if it's not super realistic. So I like what Brad said. I think there's a chance just based off the timing alone. January, you're getting to that 8-9 month range that his dad talked about. April, you're getting to 11 months. So the timing's there. It's just about whether it makes sense at that point. Does he need a little action late in the year? Is there enough time to even ramp him up, practice, whatever you need to do to get back in there? We have no idea what's going to happen, but they should take the approach of there's a chance, so go for it if it makes sense at that time.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think Jayson Tatum today, wherever he is, signifies anything, and certainly his willingness and desire and goal to play this year doesn't mean anything. It either happens or it happens, but it has nothing to do with what Jayson Tatum said in these interviews here. Okay. He's set these goals for himself, and that's a good thing. If he does return, it's not because he said so earlier this week. It's because everything went amazingly well, but we have no idea where he is today, if he's going to continue to progress. Rehab and recovery isn't always linear. You might plateau, you might take a step back. You're not quite there. You don't hit, a certain, threshold that you're supposed to in order to move forward and do the next thing. There's no clue. So again, it doesn't really matter what he said, but the fact that he wants to play is great because he's working his butt off, and you have to give a hat tip to Tatum for going at it this hard, because it is depressing, to have to go through something like this and all of the things that flashed before his eyes in his career and this and that can really mess with some people, and as Noah said, if he had to look with an eye on November 2026, that's just so daunting and depressing there. Guys, I have to dip out. I'm going to let you guys finish up here. What I did want to say, there's one thing we didn't talk about in the press conference, and that was this idea that Bill Chisholm somehow is getting snaked into owning a WNBA team because the WNBA doesn't want Pags to buy Connecticut and move them to Boston. They want to move that to Houston, and they want Chisholm and the Celtics eventually to put in an expansion bid and pay the fee and have a Boston team. And he was asked, and he said, I don't know, so the reality of a Boston team, Boston WNBA team in the near future, I'm afraid, sadly, it might not come to pass. Certainly not as soon as we would hope. Those of you who are fans of the WNBA and would like to see a team in Boston. And if you are fans of the WNBA, what are you doing not signing up for this right now? Subscribe to the new WNBA on CLNS channel, which is basically the Noah Dalzell show, but there's going to be other contributors there as well. But we have launched a WNBA YouTube channel here at CLNS Media, really driven home by Noah, who of course covers the WNBA full time, as you know, for SB Nation. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we're running out of patience, even though we've shot up to almost 600 in a very short period of time. We want 1,000 and we want it now. I'm greedy. I want it now. So subscribe. Check it out. We're in the playoffs. That's going to be fun. It's not just going to be through the WNBA season. The off season is always going to be fun, but Noah's going to be doing unrivaled content as well. As that goes on during the WNBA off season, there's going to be tons of women's basketball coverage here, professional basketball, right here on this channel. And we're just getting started. And the more it grows, the more we're going to be able to offer you. So please sign up, subscribe today. The WNBA Today on CLNS Media. Get more Noah and some of her takes on the WNBA. No one does it better. Guys, I do have to bail. Bobby, you can take us home and say goodbye. I know we're not going to hang out much longer, but if you guys had any leftover thoughts, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us, but I got to dip out.
You're muted.
Damn
There
it,
we
I
go.
wanted to come back in and say it. I wanted to be the one who said it. I was trying to get in there, and I couldn't find the button.
There we go. John on the 25 win Celtics. I'll pick it up on the WNBA.
Lower.
No.
I'll pick it up on the
No, it's not going to be lower. I'm leaving, though. I'm leaving.
I'll pick it up on the W, and then we can head on the arena stuff, which were the two leftovers there. Where are you at? He didn't say much on the W, right? Like, he wants a team here. They want to be part of that. It's far down the line if it's going to be Chisholm and company bringing an expansion team here. But where does today place you in terms of what's going to happen there?
Yeah, nothing new. I mean, I'll give a little bit of context to people who don't know exactly what's been happening over the last 6 weeks here. But basically, the Boston Globe reported in early August that the Mohegan Sun Tribe had agreed to sell the team to Steve Pagliuca and his ownership group. And it was a good bid. I think it was $325 million plus another $100 million per practice facility. So very lucrative, keeps the team in New England. Everybody seemed excited about it. And literally within a few hours, the WNBA put out a statement to the Globe basically saying that Boston's not going to cut the line and they're not going to buy the Sun. That has to be approved by the WNBA. And that if Boston wants a team, they'll have to go through the same process as most of these cities, which is going for an expansion bid, which right now there's already 5 cities that have a team coming their way: Portland, Toronto, Cleveland, Detroit, Philadelphia. And so Boston is not one of those teams. They weren't even an applicant. And so in that case, the Connecticut Sun will either be sold to an ownership group that keeps the team in Connecticut or be sold to the WNBA, which is what the league's been pushing for, which would move the team to Houston. And what they said is that they want Bill Chisholm has already reached out to the WNBA to express interest in bringing a team to Boston, and that would probably be around 2032, 33. So what he said today is basically that they want to do that, but that they have to follow the process, it's probably about 6 years away. And then he'll see if there's a way to expedite that. So it sounds like a different ownership group owning a team in Boston is not likely, whereas bringing in the WNBA team via Bill Chisholm is the league's preferred way to do things.
Yeah, and we've discussed it at length. It's disappointing because of the opportunity they had now to do it in some fashion. The uncertainty over where anything's going to be in 2033, namely even the league, which is in a great place of momentum, and this team having a chance to move to Boston and start building, which is where the Sun are at the moment, trying to move their way up. So that's going to take some time. To start fresh is incredibly difficult, and the Valkyries did it great this year. Who knows what's going to happen in Connecticut in the meantime? We've discussed how it's tough to have 2 teams in the market, and there's certainly been a lot of pressure on the Sun to move themselves to a different market. So that's a bummer today, and we didn't get to ask more questions about it because obviously the Celtics stuff's front and center, but it's unfortunate that they couldn't figure out a plan to move the team with a number of parties involved to Boston and get that done now. Because obviously Pagliuca, whether he was actually going to follow through on it, was offering to build a practice facility and get the team here in the short term and ride that momentum that the league has right now into Boston. And as you said, no, that's probably not going to be the case. The arena stuff, I had no idea how to take this. So he got asked today about the arena, which obviously would entail maybe a WNBA team down the line. Celtics having their own home, separate from the Bruins. But the one thing we learned today is that, one, he views the Bruins and the Celtics being together as important. And then beyond that, that fans like the Garden, which to me, at least in the short term, while they figure out this arena thing, makes me think that the move might actually be buying TD Garden, at least to give the Celtics that cash flow. The money that you make off the arena obviously goes to the Bruins now. That would allow the Celtics to make that money in this ownership group, and then they can figure out what they want to do long term with an arena if they want to move everything somewhere else, which they'd obviously have the power to do at that point. We have no idea if the Bruins / the Jacobs want to sell the Garden. That's obviously a big moneymaker for them right now. But his comments today did reflect maybe a change of thinking a little bit about, all right, do we want to just start building an arena somewhere and do that initially, or do we want to actually keep the Celtics where they are for the near term? And that's my thinking about how this is going to go for now. Like status quo / maybe buying the arena.
Yeah, and the reason I asked is because honestly, that's like the number one thing that would affect my life personally, but also I think that when you buy,
You're worried
buy
about
a team-
driving further?
Yeah, I live a mile from TD Garden. I was very worried about it. It's the first thing I thought when the team was up for sale. But honestly, like you don't want to take these things for
You'll be
granted.
driving
Like
by then.
TD Garden has a phenomenal atmosphere, and you see what happened in Golden State where they were playing at Oracle Arena and they moved to Chase Center, and it's just not the same. And I've talked to a million people about this, and it's just not the same.
I had that
Like-
thought too. The whole atmosphere changed. Not that
Oh,
the
yeah.
Garden's like the Boston Garden anymore, crowd wise, but it changed a lot going over to.
Yeah, and
Chase.
at the end of the day, like it is one of the hubs of downtown Boston. I've lived in Boston my whole life. Like I think culturally, it's been so important to have it be somewhere that's accessible. People take the train there, people walk there. So I'm that's like a big thing that I'll be following. And I didn't take much from his answer. Like it sounds like everything's kind of on the table. The thing I guess that stood out to me is the idea that the Bruins and the Celtics have to be together. I'm honestly not sure why that is as somebody who exclusively
Culturally,
follows basketball.
It's just
I
been the way the
guess.
city's been since they were both
Yeah.
created, effectively.
So that wasn't surprising to you. I didn't know if that was like I was missing something with that one, but
It wasn't surprising to me, but it was an update. Like we were of the
Yeah.
thinking that they could separate, and now this group, him namely, thinks that they should be together, and so that made me think they're focused on the Garden and keeping that. And he said that too, right? He's talked to a lot of fans who
loves the
like the
Garden,
Garden,
yeah.
and yeah, so that was revelatory to me today, and I think that's just a smart financial move, along with a logistical move. Like the politics of Boston and Mass make it such that building a new arena is going to be extremely difficult process. And to that point, it was interesting enough today too. The 6th Street group that bought into the Celtics reportedly bought into the Patriots as well, who are looking for capital to potentially build a new soccer arena in Boston. I know that's been a difficult process that they've been trying to figure out for a very long time. So that's going on in Boston as well right now. I don't see an arena happening anytime soon, and I think today's developments point toward that as well. So that was another note. Is there anything else we're missing though? I feel like we've hit on it all at this point.
no, I don't think so. I mean, I think there was nothing major coming out of this press conference, which is a win for Bill Chisholm ultimately. I think the two like extraneous items was the WNBA and the arena itself, and naturally he pointed out when asked about both of those things that he's only been in the seat for a couple weeks, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get his bearings and figure everything out. But yeah, I think overall it was kind of what you'd expect, and he did really remind me of Brad Stevens and like kind of like his soft-spoken, almost like kind of kind energy that he has sitting up there, and less of like a rambunctious energy that some of these guys have. So yeah, I would give him a good grade for that press conference.
Yeah, enjoyed meeting him. Enjoyed talking to everybody today. It was good to be back there. This was almost like a warm up for Monday because Monday's crazy, and I
Feels
didn't
like
know
the
if I was
first day of
totally.
school.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was totally ready for Monday, but I definitely feel more ready now. Bunch of interviews coming because it's media day, and so we will be there about 10 a.m. Monday morning for the start of Celtics training camp. And as we've discussed here, hopefully we'll hear from Tatum at that time. I do expect to. More on his comments, and he definitely went on a press tour this week, touting the chance that he could come back this week. So I'm looking forward to that. Simon's first comments as a Celtic. So much to look forward to on Monday, and we'll be streaming it all, of course, here on CLNS Media. So subscribe, turn on the notifications. We'll have a show certainly that day as well. Hear what Jimmy's thinking about this team when we can get him back on the air, Sherrod as well. And then we're off. It's training camp, a ton going on. Patriots right now as well. Subscribe to Patriots Press Pass. They got the Panthers on Sunday, so they'll have all the coverage of that down at Gillette on Sunday afternoon. The Red Sox playoffs are coming up as well. If they win tonight, they are in the playoffs. and we will have coverage of that over on Red Sox Clubhouse. So subscribe to that as well. I believe the Bruins are fully into their training camp, so you can find coverage of them over on Bruins Rinkside. So it's that time of year where all the sports are rolling. Celtics are back on Monday. We will have coverage of that. Again, check out Noah's work over on the WNBA Today channel, as well as on Celtics blog and CLNSmedia.com for all of our Celtics coverage. Just wrote up the Chisholm comments today, as well as that news I learned about Wick's ownership today as well. So you can go check that out there. And we will be back on Monday. Might have a show this weekend, might have someone on to talk more about this ownership stuff over the weekend if time permits. But that's why you subscribe. That's why you turn on notifications for whenever we go live. That's it. And we will talk to you whenever we're back here. Peace.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke